Goeiedag! Good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And I have to tell you, I am just ropeable right now because an article has come out that says asylum seekers with legal representation are 7 times more likely to succeed before the government tribunal tasked with reviewing refugee cases than those who represent themselves. Why am I ropeable? Well, because the Greenies, you know, that nasty little lefty mob? Yeah, we have them here in Australia, unfortunately. They're even in Parliament. That's even more disgusting. And of course, they have legal representatives who represent racially based groups, like the Muslims and like the black Africans pouring out of Africa into Australia. That's the reality. But if you're a white South African, forget it. They won't even look at you sideways. You know why? Because the Greenies are actually closet racists. Yeah, I'm using the R word. They selectively decide who their lawyers are going to represent, and they will never represent a white person. What does that say to you about this completely disgusting bunch of losers? Now, we know that we've got someone who's fighting very hard for the white South Africans. That's a Springbok Relief Fund or group headed up by Andrew. We've had him on a live stream recently talking about how they're going through the very process I'm going to talk about here and how critically important it is that they win this appeal that they're going through. And we'll obviously be on top of that when Andrew gets back to us with a decision. And we'll have him on a live stream to discuss this. But this is the process, okay? Where refugees come from and which individual member is reviewing their case on the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, AAT, may also significantly influence their odds of success. Do you hear that? The person reviewing their case. Now remember that most of these members are left-leaning Greenies. And that's why not one person from South Africa who has this coloured skin has been approved asylum. That's a fact, despite the disgusting things that are going on in South Africa and the evidence of this. Okay, let's continue. There are some of the major findings from our research into the decision-making patterns of the overburdened AAT, or the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, in refugee cases. The data obtained from a Freedom of Information request cover 18,196 cases decided by the AAT between January 2015 and December 2019. Our research only looked at asylum seekers who arrived by plane and had access to a review by the AAT. Now remember, only one South African asylum family have actually gone through that process and they were kicked out by the AAT. They're the family that's now taking this on appeal. And that's a critical aspect of this judgment. For refugees and asylum seekers applying for protection visas in Australia, the process is lengthy and arduous. The initial assessment of a protection visa application is carried out by the Department of Home Affairs. If this is denied, and every single asylum request by a white South African has been denied to date. If this is denied, the option for review then depends on how they arrived in Australia. Those who arrive by plane can seek review at the AAT, where they are given a fresh hearing assessing the merits of their claim for protection. Those who arrive by boat without authorization can only access a much more limited form of review before the Immigration Assessment Authority, or IAA. If the asylum seeker's claim fail at the IAA or AAT, they can then seek judicial review at the Federal Circuit Court, but only on very narrow grounds, or there having been some serious legal error Now, that's exactly what is happening through this group in South Africa, who are working through one family who's doing exactly this at the moment, to try and set a precedent so that the rest have a chance to be able to say, hey, hang on guys, we have a precedent. Overall, we found asylum seekers receive favorable outcomes before the AAT in just 13% of cases. This includes instances where a visa has been granted or the matter was sent back to the Department for reconsideration. In the remaining 87% of cases, the original decision to refuse a visa was affirmed by the AAT or the application was withdrawn. Our analysis of the data reveals much more about the factors that tend to lead a successful or unsuccessful review. One of the most striking findings relates to the potential influence of professional migration advice from a lawyer or migration agent. We found that only 4% of unrepresented applicants were successful at the AAT. Only 4%. That's less than 1 in 20. This figure rose to 28% when an asylum seeker had legal representation. That's more than 1 in 4. You can see it's a huge disparity. So you've got to have money to actually get asylum seeking status, or you've got to be that select Muslim or black African group that the Greens put lawyers behind to get them asylum in Australia. But of course, they're very selective, the Greens, and very racist. These statistics suggest the government decision to restrict public funding for free legal advice services may be severely disadvantaging applicants who cannot secure representation. This is all the more concerning given our data shows that just over half, or 52% of all applicants, do not have a representation when they appear before the AAT, because they can't afford it. That's where the Greens come in, because they do it for free for their selected racial groups. What a bunch of racists they are. Yeah, I'm calling them out. The Greens are racists. Get over it. There are also stark differences in the success rates of applicants from different countries. Of the countries that had 20 or more applications during the period we studied, applicants from Libya, 91%, Afghanistan, 76%, Ethiopia, 61%, stateless individuals, 43%, Iraq, 53%, and Iran, 47%, were the most likely to succeed with their reviews. Now, you find me one white country amongst those. It ain't there. And this is why things are going pear-shaped in parts of Australia, like Melbourne. Thankfully, Brisbane has been pretty isolated from the crap that's going on in Melbourne with the black African gangs down there. And that has been reported on largely. Just go to YouTube and just type in African gangs, Melbourne, Australia, and you'll get hundreds of examples of what I'm talking about. While some variation is to be expected in these cases, the very high rates of decisions being overturned for certain countries raises concerns about the quality of the initial decisions being made on visas by the Department of Home Affairs. Why is the department getting it wrong 90% of the time for Libyan applicants, or more than 75% of the time for applicants from Afghanistan? At a time when the AAT is facing a record backlog of applications, it's vital to understand why this is happening, so that some of the pressure might be alleviated. At the other end, the success rate for visas reviews for those from Ireland and Tonga was 0%, followed by Taiwan and South Korea 1%, and Malaysia 3%. And of course, South Africa is 0% as well. The Malaysian applicants are significant as they made up more than 1/3 of the entire caseload for the period, 6,488 applications. The large numbers and low success rates among this group significantly skew the overall data. When the Malaysian applications are removed, the success rate for all asylum seekers increases from 13% to 19%. A parliamentary inquiry found that people smugglers and illegal labour hire companies may be bringing workers into the country on travel visas and then applying for protection visas. Nice, 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 nice. Greenies, you're doing a wonderful job. You complete and utter F-wits. This concern was raised particularly with respect to Malaysians. However, there is no strong evidence that backs up the claim around the systematic involvement of people smugglers and organised crime. Regardless, the only incentive to put in an unmeritorious asylum claim is that it can buy you more time living and working in Australia. Now, we talked about this with the Springbok Relief group in the live stream, and going through the process can actually buy you 4 years in Australia. And if you believe South Africa is going to go completely cactus in 4 years' time so they can't send you back, now might be the time. But that's your call. That's all I'm saying. If exploitation is a concern, the best way to ensure the integrity of the system is to reduce delays and invest more resources to boost the capacity for high-quality decision-making at both the Department and the AAT. In our research, we also found significant differences in the success rate for refugee visa reviews, depending which tribunal member hears the case. So when it comes to white South Africans, read a greenie person being involved with the tribunal, because they will look at that white South African family or white person and say, racist, racist, pointing the finger, not realizing 3 fingers are pointing back at them, because that's who the real racist is, the greenie. We only examine members who had decided 50 or more cases to ensure the sample is large enough to be statistically relevant. 2 members did not find in favour of a single asylum seeker applicant, and another 16 had approved rates of less than 5%. At the other end, 1 member decided in favour of the asylum seekers in 86% of cases, while another 3 members had an approval rates of over 40%. It is important to caution against drawing inferences as to the cause of this variation. While this could be a result of the individual preferences or biases, get that? Biases of tribunal members, it could also be explained by the way cases are allocated. This is sounding more and more like the South African judicial system, isn't it? We've just discussed this on 2020 when it came to Boerelichion and the protest they are calling for on the 20th of March. You'll have to go to 2020 to see that. Members generally have expertise in specific types of claims from specific countries, which influence the cases they are assigned. In response to questions about this, the AAT said, to construct any meaningful comparison concerning the variation of outcomes across individual members, there should be more analysis of the nature of the reviews undertaken by those members sampled. For instance, the country of origin of applicants and the nature of the claims made by those applicants are generally the most significant factors in determining the outcome of a review. So, we know from Andrew from Springbok Relief that it was a cut and paste response to South African asylum seekers from the guys assessing them. They didn't even do this. They didn't cover this. They're just sitting on their big fat asses and just cutting and pasting from someone else's response to an asylum seeker from South Africa. It's complete BS. Anyway, let's continue. We will examine these factors in more detail in future research. The AAT is under enormous pressure with its record backlog of cases and associated delays. Now, this is really working in the favor of people, white families and white people who fly into South Africa and seek asylum here, because once they've actually sought asylum and have had it knocked back, they can then go before the AAT to have it reviewed. And that can take years. So you can actually work in the meantime. You can just live your life, build your life. If you've got kids who are over 20, maybe they can marry an Australian and bang, you know, they can get a visa because they're married to an Australian. Now, that's just my assessment. So please, before you take that as gospel, check it out. But I know that if you marry an Australian, you basically, it's a ticket to becoming an Australian yourself, regardless of where you come from. Okay, so we will examine these factors in more detail in future research. The AAT is under enormous pressure with its record backlog of cases and associated delays. We believe making data on decision-making patterns publicly available for analysis can lead to better ideas for improving the efficiency and fairness of the process, and this would be in the interests of both refugees and the government. Now, I think that's an absolutely amazing analysis on the situation in Australia, because what they're saying in effect is that your success or failure at the AAT depends on who you're sitting in front of. And it's exacerbated by the fact if you don't have legal representation, you've only got 1/7 of the chance of someone who has got legal representation of actually being accepted. And that's based on past statistics. All right, guys, I'm just putting that out there. You guys have got to make your own decisions. It's up to you to decide what you want to do. I'm just giving you the facts on the ground here in Australia. Please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video. Please share this video, especially to people who are considering coming to Australia. And above all, please stay safe.